The agricultural food shortages, which will be caused by the hurricane, resulting in higher prices. Post-hurricane activities, including recovery spending by Jamaicans and the government, as well as possibly increase in remittance inflows, could combine to cause inflation to increase. This is a result of demand outstripping supply, causing prices to rise. There is also
Good day, I'm Lisa Rowe, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, November 26, 2025. Jamaica's economy grew by an estimated 4.6% for the July to September quarter of 2025. The preliminary figures were shared by the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, yesterday. PIOJ's Director General, Dr. Wayne Henry, says the growth is relative to the corresponding quarter of 2024. Dr. Henry says the estimated outturn largely reflected recovery from the low production base experienced in the similar quarter of 2024.
The economy recorded relatively strong growth, driven mainly by the industries that were most impacted by Hurricane Beryl, that caused damage estimated at 56.7 billion Jamaican dollars in the corresponding quarter of 2024. These industries were agriculture, forestry and fishing, electricity, water supply and waste management, accommodation and food service activities, and mining and quarrying, which benefited from improved operational conditions and greater demand.
Consequently, the goods-producing industry recorded growth of 10%, while the services industry experienced a 3% growth. Meanwhile, the period January to September grew by 2.4%.
This reflected higher real value added of 5% for the goods producing industry and 1.6% for the services industry. The most significant drivers of this performance were agriculture, forestry and fishing, up 11.3%, accommodation and food service activities, up 2.9%, and construction, up 2.6%.
Still on the economy, the PIOJ says economic recovery to pre-Hurricane Melissa output levels is conservatively projected to be within 3 to 5 years. The Director General says the short-term outlook will see a sharp decline for the October to December quarter of this year.
In light of the foregoing, it is projected that the economy will contract within the range of 11% to 13% during the October to December 2025 quarter. The preliminary economic projection for fiscal year 2025-26 is for a contraction within the range of 3% to 6%.
Dr. Henry says this sharp downturn is the worst quarterly performance since the April to June quarter of 2020, when the island was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The PIOJ reports that prior to the passage of Hurricane Melissa, the economy was poised for strong growth following the adverse hydrological events of financial year 2024-2025. Growth of 3.1% was estimated for the first half of the current fiscal year, and this was expected to continue throughout the second half.
The depth and duration of this current shock is contingent on the timing of the implementation of major initiatives to support the humanitarian and economic recovery activities.
The Bank of Jamaica BOJ has announced that its policy rate will remain unchanged at 5.75% per annum, despite rising inflationary pressures following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. BOJ Governor Richard Bowles explained that the decision was made during recent meetings of the Monetary Policy Committee MPC. Governor Bowles also noted that the general price of goods and services are expected to rise in the short term due to the devastation in food-producing parishes.
The agricultural food shortages, which will be caused by the hurricane, resulting in higher prices. Post-hurricane activities, including recovery spending by Jamaicans and the government, as well as possibly increase in remittance inflows, could combine to cause inflation to increase. This is a result of demand outstripping supply, causing prices to rise. There is also the possibility of second-round price increases on other goods and services, including personal care items, routine household maintenance, transport, and energy.
The BOJ projects that inflation rates will return to the 4 to 6% target by 2027. The central bank is also taking special preemptive measures to preserve relative stability in the foreign exchange market.
BOJ has strong international reserves to support the foreign exchange market. Since the hurricane, the bank has sold US $210 million into the market. Going forward, in the short term, BOJ will also directly supply the foreign currency need of selected entities in the energy sector to take out of the market these large, lumpy purchases that could distort prices at any given time. We will also proactively ensure adequate foreign currency liquidity in the market, including the reintroduction of scheduled advance notices of intervention sales.
In other news, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, has mobilized an initial $2 million in resilient recovery grants. These grants will support the restoration of community life and livelihoods and the national vision for a resilient recovery. This initial resilient recovery grant builds on the UNDP's immediate crisis response allocations and generous contributions from the CARICOM Development Fund and the European Union. UNDP resident representative Dr. Kishan Kode says the agency stands in solidarity with Jamaica.
The initiative will also bring tangible impacts, immediate impacts at the community level, clearing debris, bringing solar systems, and enhancing SMEs and livelihoods so people can get back on their feet towards a resilient recovery.
The UNDP is also considering making available an additional $8 million in grant assistance through the realignment of resources from the agency's ongoing development programs in Jamaica. These funds will support nature-based and climate-resilient recovery in the tourism sector and capacity development for ecosystem restoration. It will also be used for integrated land management in Western Jamaica and support civil society organizations for building long-term resilience of communities and ecosystems. Cabinet has approved a $150 million loan to the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS. This is to facilitate restoration efforts without extending the current existing license by the power company, which expires in 2027. Making the announcement in Parliament on Tuesday, Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications Darrell Vaz explained that urgent restoration is needed in parishes hardest hit by Hurricane Melissa.
The Emergency Disaster Fund, which is what you would call the self-insurance for the distribution and transmission line of the JPS, which is not insured because it's uninsurable, is what we have used for Beryl and for Melissa and for all the other events that we have had in recent years. So, as of right now, that fund, based on the claims that have been made already, to prepare for Melissa, has been exhausted. So it means that the JPS has 2 years on a license and they have to raise money to restore.
Minister Vaz said the loan will span 5 years with an interest rate still to be finalized by the Ministry of Finance. However, JPS has the option to repay in 2 years. Minister Vaz revealed that the JPS has projected worst affected areas may be restored by April or May 2026. However, Cabinet approval is expected to fast-track full restoration by February 2026.
But based on the fact that we need restoration as a country in the shortest possible time, the government of Jamaica has agreed to loan the JPS $150 million United States dollars on the basis that they will use that money, which is estimated at $75 million a month, to restore the entire grid, save and except for any special area that may not be reachable, but the major areas by the end of January, latest early February.
According to Minister Vaz, the JPS has committed 300 additional linesmen to their current crew of 170. To date, approximately 75% of the island has been restored. This represents 687,339 households and businesses that have been reconnected to the grid. The University of the West Indies, UWI Regional Headquarters in Kingston, will host the first regional colloquium on early childhood education this week. This is to strengthen support for Jamaica's youngest learners in the wake of Hurricane Melissa. The two-day event, running from November 27 to 28, is themed Building Strong Foundations, Advancing Early Childhood Education Through Policy, Practice and Partnership. The colloquium will focus on policy, practice and partnerships that will explore ways to resolve issues affecting the sector. Professor of Early Childhood Care and Education at UWI Mona, Professor Zoya Kincaid-Clark, said the colloquium is centered on advocacy for Jamaica's most vulnerable citizens.
Given the passage of Hurricane Melissa, Jamaica's already vulnerable early childhood sector will need all hands on deck, from partners to help the sector recover.
Professor Kincaid-Clark was speaking at a JIS think tank on Friday. The conference is being staged in collaboration with the JN Foundation, the Early Childhood Commission, ECC, the UWI School of Education, and the Dudley Grant Early Childhood Research Center. And finally, James Jimmy Cliff Chambers will be accorded an official funeral. Culture Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange made the announcement in Parliament Tuesday, saying further details will be shared soon.
He left specific instructions how he wanted Jamaica to say farewell to him. His passing has left us deeply saddened, as the transitioning of Jimmy represents a major loss, not just for Jamaica, but for the world. He gave so much of his life to delivering meaningful music, which resonated in every corner of the globe.
A moment of silence was observed for the late reggae legend who died on Monday at the age of 81. Tributes also came from both sides of the house.
Through it all, he remained grounded, and despite walking with kings, never lost the common touch.
Jimmy Cliff has taken his final bow, but his voice will continue to echo in dance halls and churches and quiet moments of reflection. His life reminds us that Jamaica's creativity is indeed world-class, and that our stories, told in our language, our rhythm, are powerful enough to move the world.
He penetrated markets which had not traditionally been open to Jamaican music. And, he became a much-loved cultural ambassador for Jamaica.
Jimmy Cliff reshaped what was possible for a boy from a rural district, for a young singer with a dream for a small island with a big voice.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Lisa Rowe. Thanks for watching.